So I just, in my head, decided that my new control speed was always going to be above where I was at, and then really pushing it high for speed building.
Excellent. So you did that the whole time, and it seemed to work for you.
Yes.
I'm glad to hear that. Now, some people who come from a piano background say that you don't do that in piano. In piano, you don't learn a piece by pushing faster than you're supposed to normally.
Yeah, you would slow it down.
Okay, right. And so you had to go against your typical way of learning piano for chord reporting.
Yes.
Interesting, but it worked for you.
Yes, because I was able to still apply the same piano methods of perfection and accuracy and those things that still did apply, even if I was kind of doing the opposite as far as pushing for speed.
Now, speaking of perfection and accuracy, how were you able to apply that while doing high speeds?
I would start at my high speed, so let's say to try to pass out of the final 225 Q&A. I would push it up to 280, 290, and I'd start there, and I might take that about maybe a 2-minute take. I might do it 2 or 3 times, and then drop it 10%, until I was at a speed that I was comfortable with. Maybe that was 230, 240, and at that point, by dropping it to that level, the accuracy just kind of came naturally.
Number one, you've heard it 4 or 5 times by this point.
Oh, yeah.
And so you're getting the 4th or 5th time to write these things. Plus, it's now a lot slower.
Yes.
So you can work on perfection.
Exactly. And then by the time I would drop it to 225, I would feel like, oh, I'm ready to go test right now.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad that you said this, because a lot of teachers out there, chord reporting teachers who are very good chord reporting teachers, don't really understand my high-speed method, and they're worried that if students go high-speed, they'll just write messy and have bad habits.
It was super messy.
It was super messy at high
it's total
speed.
trash, so to speak, but as it comes down, the accuracy comes back immediately, and because you're working on short takes and you're bringing it down, I don't really feel like I ever developed any horrible habits that then I found myself bringing into my actual speed where I was.
Right. Okay. Very good. So you took exactly 1 year, and
I think 2 weeks under a year.
Yeah, actually 2 weeks under a year, because she started in late August.
It was late August.
And she finished in early August or mid-August. So, yes, excellent. That 2 weeks, that means
counts.
She took 50 weeks to graduate, not 52.
That is right.
Yeah, that's excellent. And by the way, I'll mention that I passed my first certification a year and 3 months after I started. So
okay,
you smoked me.
I've got to start doing the math, though, and see when I'm going to pass, if I can pass the certification.
Oh, yes, that's true. That's true. I probably passed my 225s probably in October or November or something. So you still beat me.
Okay.
You still beat me. No, it won't even be neck and neck.
Okay.
Nope. So, and you'll be taking in October, so yeah, actually you'll end up probably passing at the same time I did.
God willing.
But it's only because you have to wait. I didn't have to wait too long. I got to take one in December.
Okay.
Okay, so another thing I want to ask you is, do you feel that writing short and memorizing briefs helped you, hurt you, or something in between?
Oh, it helped me completely. I will be the first to admit that writing things out for me is not always the most fun, and I'm not the greatest at it. I get by, obviously, because I'm not a dictionary full of briefs, so I do have the ability to write out, and I do every time I write. But having the briefs there, I feel like my fingers just move slowly. I feel like I'm writing super fast takes, but then if I look at what my fingers are actually doing, they're not physically pushing too terribly fast because there's so much briefing and so much phrasing. Correct.
Did you ever notice when you were in speed classes with the people in Sten Ed, if there were any in their 200s or 225s, or did you notice how fast their fingers move?
They fly like the wind, and the first time that I started looking around, because I often would just kind of shut my eyes and go into my own little zone, but if I ever did look around, I'd start getting panicked, because I'd be thinking, I must be missing something, because other people, some people are going so fast, they must be going so much faster than me, until I realized that, well, wait, I'm briefing 2 to 5 words at a time, so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And after you finished chapter 48 or so, which was after 4 months, did we say? Or
about 4.
4 months.
Yeah.
So then That meant for 8 months you were speed building all the way from, what, 100 and something to 225?
I started right at 60 was my first test that I wanted to take.
Okay, so when she finished theory, folks, she was at 60 words a minute, and that's because they never tested you before that.
Yeah, we hadn't done any official speed testing, so I went on my own for the month and a half after theory and just started working on dictations over that Christmas break, and then came back at the end of January and took the first speed test, which was just at 60 as the baseline test, and passed those in the first, we had to pass them twice, so passed it in the first 2 weeks.
Right. Now, would you ever skip a day in practicing?
Only on Sundays.
Only Sundays.
Only Sundays.
And that was for religious reasons.
Just, I figured, God and Chick-fil-A can take a rest, so
God and
I
Chick-fil-A.
can too.
Yes, very good. Okay. I've said for years and years, practice every single day. Unless there's one day you have a religious objection, then do that.
And there were some days, if I didn't get my Saturday in, then Sunday became that day, but I tried to get a solid 6 for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, let's see. I know there are a couple other things I wanted to ask you. Let me think what they are. Oh, let me ask you about writing out. People that learn a lot of briefs sometimes fall into the trap of not being able to write out very well. But I also have discovered that even people who are supposed to write out everything, they complain and scream if they get something that's dense.
Yeah.
Where they have to write out bigger words. They scream like crazy, and I would say, what are you screaming about? You're supposed to be able to write everything out.
Yeah.
But apparently it doesn't work so well. So
no one likes it.
Exactly. So what did you do to handle bigger words that you don't know how to write?
Yeah, I will admit, when I first started for those first couple chapters, I was, realizing that, okay, I'm just memorizing specific words. And then as I realized that the theory behind the briefs, and that was all introduced in your book.
We gave reasons for the
yes,
briefs
there were
and ways
reasons
to remember
and ways,
them.
Yes, and then it was all built around the main theory that people who use write-it-out theories use. And then at the end of each chapter, you would give us examples of really hard words, crazy multisyllabic stuff, that you would teach us how we would write that out. So I took those principles, and then when I got into speed classes with STENED people, I would say, hey, this word, what would you do? Just to make sure I was on the right track. And then I just kind of got in the habit of, if there was a really hard word as I'm watching TV, just in my head thinking, how would I write that out? And just kind of comparing it to what was in your dictionary and figuring it out on the fly, if there was any weakness in that area. And within just a couple months, I felt completely comfortable to conquer any crazy name or word.
Excellent.
Yeah.
When you would take a test that might be a hard test for you, what would happen when you hit a write-it-out word? Would you freeze and drop?
No, well, we were given proper name sheets for tests, so that helped a lot. But no, a lot of your methods can be applied as far as, writing it out still shorter than it might typically be. If it was a really multisyllabic word, I didn't necessarily need to get every little tiny syllable, just enough to know afterwards in editing what that word was.